thing that I've ever done, but really quickly, how many people have seen my new film, An Inconvenient Study? So not very many, so let me talk about it. You know, we're at this conference, Fab made a good point, we're at this conference where you're going to hear about all these great energy machines and all sorts of, you know, new technologies, vitamins, all of it. But what are we doing if all we're doing is chasing a problem that we're creating somewhere else? My son recently, I said, will you mow the lawn? And he went out and got with a little tractor with about 8 acres, and you know, it's hard to get him out there. But he went out, and I got home, and I just saw the mower right in the middle of the yard. I said, what happened? He's like, well, I filled it with gas, I drove it, something's wrong, it just stopped. I said, did you do the choke, all the things, you know? So then yesterday, I had a little bit of time, and I hopped in myself, and I had to charge the battery, and I'm revving it, and I'm thinking, man, I haven't done an oil change in a while, I should probably do an oil change. Started thinking about like new belts and blades and this and all of it, and then it just hit me as I walked through the driveway that there was a gas can with the lid open, and I'm like, it's been raining in Austin, Texas for a week and a half. He poured water, not gasoline, into the engine, right, into the fuel tank. So I mean that to say, what would doing an oil change on a mower do if I have water in my gas tank? Almost nothing at all, right? And so what will all of these, you know, technologies that are coming our way do if we are poisoning ourselves on a constant basis? If we're poisoning our children, I really question how much of these energy machines and lasers and red lights would be needed if we never started poisoning ourselves on this planet. And so when it comes to poison, I talk about vaccines. And I know there's people in here that are like, no, I know. You know, we try to keep it reduced, or we're doing, you know, a spread out schedule. And I just want to be really clear why I think this is the most important issue there is on Earth. We are systematically baptizing our children in pharmaceutical chemicals on their very first day they're born. And then we do it again 3 months later. And then we do it again 6 months later, and 12 months later, and at 3 years old, and at 6 years old, and at 12 years old, and 16 years old. We are not stopping. Everyone here in this building is trying to figure out how to make you healthy, not using pharma, but all you're doing is poisoning yourself with pharma. You're poisoning your children, and you're going to spend the rest of your lives trying to undo that harm. It's total insanity. Day one of life, a hepatitis B vaccine. You know, one of the things I'm just questioning is, when we talk about energy frequencies, what is the energy of a sexually transmitted disease? Why on earth would we want antibodies to a sexually transmitted disease most of us will never come in contact with? Why are we priming our children for a disease that only heroin users get? And prostitutes that sleep with prostitutes. Why on the first day of life, especially in America, are we saying we want our children to walk with an energy frequency of a sexually transmitted disease? Now they're protected. If we'd have raised them right, they never would have needed it. And this is just the beginning of the insanity that we're a part of. But look, maybe it's not a big deal. Maybe it wouldn't matter. When I started this journey, it was just about autism. I made VAXed. It looks like there's this group of children that are having a really rare, bad reaction to vaccines. That's how my journey started. I left the CBS talk show, the doctors, to do one investigation: vaccines and autism. But then when I was on the road traveling all over the country, all I heard were stories not just of autism, not just of the MMR vaccine, the one vaccine that my whole film was about. People were saying, my child died after a flu shot. My child, has been paralyzed ever since they received the Gardasil vaccine. And they were a star athlete prior to it happening. Or we never even got to the MMR vaccine, Our child regressed into autism after the DTaP vaccine they got at 12 months old. And it went on and on and on. People lined up for miles. So there's one question. Is there a benefit to vaccines? That's what most people come up. Certainly there's a vaccine that's good, right? Really good question. Super important question. And that's why this study is so important. In 2016, as I was traveling with Vaxxed, someone said, I can introduce you to the head of infectious disease at Henry Ford Health, one of the biggest research hospitals in the world. Would you like to meet him? Yeah, of course I would. I love a great debate. So we went and we sat down for dinner. And the first thing he said to me was, I watched the film Vaxxed, it's very compelling. I just want you to know I am staunchly pro-vaccine. I'm the reason we vaccinate every employee of the Henry Ford Health system. So we're not really sure what we're doing here, but we share this mutual friend, and I promised I might have dinner with you. And he said, but there's something you keep saying as you're traveling around this country. I've watched your YouTube videos. You've been saying something I found very disturbing. You keep saying they've never done a proper scientific study of vaccines to establish that any of them are safe. He said, that's a pretty strong statement. I sit on the biggest databases in the world. So I went and did my research so I could bring it to you to show you you're spreading misinformation. And he said, and I'm shocked that I have to sit across this table from you and tell you you're right. I had no idea. We have never done a safety trial using a saline inert placebo of any of the vaccines we give our kids. He admitted it right there. He said, but I don't know what I could do for you. I said, well, I do. I want to challenge you. Obviously, you believe in vaccines. Yeah, I do. Okay. Why don't you take the greatest institute that you have there at Henry Ford Health and compare the health outcomes of vaccinated kids with completely unvaccinated kids. Now, let me make something clear that I haven't really said. I've been talking about doing this for years. I talked about it when I was on tour with Vax. No one would go near it. No one would touch the topic. And people would say to me, Del, will you stop telling everyone that if we could just get a vaccinated versus unvaccinated study, we could get to the bottom of this? The CDC will eventually do that study, Del, and they're going to manipulate it. They're going to, make it say what they need it to say, and then where's your argument going to be? And I said, I don't think Robert Kennedy Jr. or me, I think they're afraid of us. It's been for years I've been saying. I have to imagine it is not lost on the CDC or the FDA or the NHS out in England or all of the health groups around the world, every single regulatory agency, it is not lost on them that if they could just produce a vaccinated versus unvaccinated study that showed the vaccinated kids are the healthiest in the world, it's not lost on them. Del Bigtree is done. Robert Kennedy Jr. will never end up being the HHS secretary if all they needed to do was produce the most simple study known to man. I was so sure I was right, I said to Dr. Marcus Zerbos, do that study. I'll have no hands on it. You take your institute, you take your children, your databases, and compare vaccinated to unvaccinated, and let's let the chips fall where they may. 4 years later, he finally did that study. I hounded him for 4 years. Folks, I'm not sure there's a single product in this building, maybe there is, where they hated it to their enemies. They handed it to pharma. They handed it to people that said, that's quack, that's bullshit, it doesn't exist. I handed the most important study to someone to prove to me I'm wrong. You do it. And then in 2020, we heard it was finished, and he was refusing to publish it. Dr. Zerbos, hey, look, I heard you finished the study, and I'm hearing you're not going to publish it. So what's going on? He's like, yeah, I can't explain it. Can't explain what? I said, look, we only had one deal. It was a gentleman's bet, really. You do the study. However it turns out, one rule, you publish it no matter what it says. Yeah, I remember that, I know. So why are you publishing it? Well, Because when I agreed to do this study, Del, I did not realize I would be agreeing to ending the childhood vaccine program. What? What just happened in the study, Dr. Zervos? You're saying it's that bad that one study could end the vaccine program as we know it? He's like, it's really bad and I can't explain it. And so, for 2 years, I kept calling him. Come on. If it's that bad, it's important information. Someone needs it. Someone needs to see it. I can't do it, Del. So I finally said, look, I'm going to be up in Detroit. Let's grab dinner. Figured it'd be the last time I had this conversation. I still hadn't seen the study. And I wore hidden cameras and recording equipment. And this is the trailer for our film.
We are now the sickest country in the world.
It is now believed that over 54% of our kids have a permanent chronic disease. Shouldn't we look closest at the one product designed to alter our immune system for life? There'd be one easy study to rule it out, the vaccinated versus unvaccinated study.
As fate would have it, Del met Marcus Servos. He agreed to do a vaxxed versus unvaxxed study.
Kids that are vaccinated, it doesn't look so good.
4.47 times the amount,
5.5 times risk.
6 times increase.
Amongst the unvaccinated group, there were 0.
Like, if this is true, this is devastating.
It needs to be published.
This is information the public should have had in 2020, and I forced the issue.
Did you see how Ford responded?
They said this report was not published because it did not meet the rigorous scientific standards we demand as a premier medical research institution.
They have forced our hand. We're going to have to show them the footage.
I'm going to bring hidden cameras and recording equipment so that no matter what happens at this dinner, I can prove it happened.
What do you think about the study you guys have done?
Well, I think it's a good study, but it does have limitations.
Do you find any flaws in the study? Is there a way they can do the study better?
No, I put it out just how it is. I don't want to say it's not the right thing to do. It's the right thing to do, but I just don't want to. Somebody's going to come back and they're going to say, this study was flawed.
The unpublished Henry Ford analysis is fundamentally flawed.
How about looking at this as important scientific information that can inform how the proper study could be done? Won't take it like that. And then I can say, because there's a political agenda.
Is what your study shows, is it important?
Yeah, it's important. I'm not going to do it.
If I can't get the study out, then what hope is there for every kid in the future? I said to you, if you do this study, you're going to come under fire. You said, I don't care about that. I'm all about the data, and I'm about to retire anyway. That's literally what you said.
Yeah.
So your energy's definitely changed on that.
My energy's changed. Publishing something like that, might as well retire. I'd be finished.
This is an inconvenient study for the entire vaccine agenda.
All I can say is in all the work I've done since 2016, including Vaxxed, I've never made a more important tool than this one. If you haven't seen it, you have to see it. If you think you understand this or know it, you've never seen it like this. And you will realize that everyone you know needs to see this film. So let's talk about it. We are in a chronic disease epidemic in this country, the worst we've ever seen. Our kids have gone from 12% chronic disease in the 1980s when we were getting about 10 vaccines to now 54% of them. It is a coin toss if your child is going to be permanently sick their entire lives. That's it. It is the greatest decline in human health that has ever been recorded. And people will say, how do you know it's not the fluoride, Del, in the water, or the pesticides and herbicides on our crops, or, the hormones in our beef, but forever chemicals, plastics, all really important, all toxic stuff, and my nonprofit sues on those things. But let's be really clear. If at the center of chronic disease is autoimmune disease, that's what's driving this. Autoimmune, immune dysregulation. Let me make this as simple as I possibly can, because most of the things we're trying to heal here with our equipment is your autoimmune disease, your brother's autoimmune disease, your family's autoimmune disease. Your immune systems are overactive. What does every drug and every commercial you're watching on television do? All those commercials that are paying every single news agency you're watching. Why am I not hearing about vaccines, Del? Because pharma is owning your television. Your news anchor works for pharma. What are they not telling you? What this study found, when they compared 20,000 kids, 2,000 unvaccinated, 18,000 vaccinated, you were 2.5 times more likely to have a chronic disease if you were vaccinated compared to the unvaccinated. 6 times the rate of neurodevelopmental disorders in the vaccinated compared to the unvaccinated. 6 times the rate of autoimmune disease if you're vaccinated compared to the unvaccinated. And they did a 10-year look. Over 10 years, what would be the odds that a child would have a chronic disease? If you were vaccinated, you had a 57% likelihood of having at least one chronic disease by 10 years old if you were vaccinated. What are you going to do the rest of your life after that? You're going to spend the rest of your life at conferences like this trying to figure out what's going on with my body. What is happening with my body? What is wrong? Why do I have inflammation? Why do my muscles hurt? Why are my muscles demyelinated? All autoimmune disease. Why isn't my stomach digesting? Why am I in pain? 57% of the kids. We only looked at one thing. This is how science works. We just said, just look at vaccines and those that didn't get it. You know how many kids, what percentage of the unvaccinated would have chronic disease at 10 years old? 17%, compared to 57%. We don't have to look much further. Fluoride probably exacerbating, glyphosate probably exacerbating, but let's look at the one product of all the ones that we can think of, the toxic chemicals. They're less than 10. They're all started in the 1980s. And let's look at our issue, immune dysregulation. There is only one product that you would describe as being designed to incite what? Your immune system. And we use aluminum and toxic chemicals to send your body into an inflammatory event, to over-respond to a tiny bit of antigens, not the amount you get if you breathed it in and just had a regular illness. No, we're going to go with less. That's the secret, to be less. But we're going to give it a pile of toxic elements like aluminum so your body freaks out and overstimulates. He goes, oh my God, there's some antibodies in here. Antigens, I gotta make antibodies. So we ramp your immune system up. We cause an inflammatory event. If you had measles, you're gonna have it once as a child. But if you vaccinate for measles, you're gonna inflame your body 3 times, 5 times, because they keep giving it to you because it's not working well enough. And so we take your children, and we're taking you, and believe me, they're coming with forced vaccinations just like COVID for you. And we ramp up their immune system, not 1 time, not 5 times, not 10 times, not 20 times, not 40 times, not 50 times, 72 times. We are ramping up unnaturally our children's immune systems, and lo and behold, science cannot figure out why we have an immune dysregulation crisis. It doesn't take a rocket scientist. You don't need to be a doctor here to understand what's going on. And let's be clear. Of all the things Robert Kennedy Jr. is trying to investigate as HHS Secretary, to try and make us healthier, why is the one product he's not allowed to touch the one that's designed to do what? Fuck with your immune system! This has got to end. It's got to end now, because we'll never have enough light machines. We'll never have enough vitamins. We'll never be able to purify our water enough if we're poisoning our children.
Yes.
So use your voice. Watch this movie. Share it with everyone you know. And remember, the greatest gift and tool you have in health is how you are created. You were born in the image and likeness of God. You are designed perfectly. Stop messing with it. Stop poisoning it. These energy machines and everything are brilliant. I don't mean to put them down. But they're fixing a problem we've created. We need to grow up. We need to not be afraid. We need to tell everyone we know, because Robert Kennedy Jr.'s got a window this big before we will watch a takeover of health that will be completely pharmaceutically based. They're fighting him at every turn. They're fighting him because he's right over the target. They haven't stopped at Silicon Valley making the tracking systems to make sure that you're being injected with all your pharmaceutical products. They haven't stopped making mRNA technologies, which are the greatest disaster we've ever seen on this earth. They haven't stopped writing laws all over the world to give WHO sovereignty power over every human being. There's only one nation that is still saying no. And you think we'll keep saying no, even after the next election? Or maybe the election after that? If you don't think this is your issue, think again. If you think that any of the machines, some of these people are literally in courtrooms right now fighting the dark side. They're trying to undermine them, lie about them, take them out. But right now, we have a sympathetic president. And we have a sympathetic HHS secretary. And we're still fighting for our lives. We were born right now, at this moment in time, for a reason. Stop dreaming about what it would have been like to be Thomas Jefferson or even Martin Luther King. All of those great people that stood up against insurmountable odds and wrote the most powerful pages in our history books. We are about to lose the American dream. If control of your body is not the most important right you have, then you're asleep. And if you recognize how important it is, you will realize that we're about to write the most dynamic pages in our history books that were ever written. Our children, our great-grandchildren, 7 generations will talk about what we did here. Yeah, it looks terrible on paper, you guys. Pharma owns every nation in the world. It's the biggest lobby. It owns your television set. But Robert Kennedy Jr. got to be HHS secretary, never saw that happening. No one believed that could happen. Stop looking at it on paper. Stop looking at how this ends. That's for God to decide. But pick up your sword. Take your next right step. And realize, if we all do our part, we can start that march back to Eden. Back to how we were created. Back to health.